Hi, let us talk about the interest rate, lending interest rate in the exchange. So, I'm using the FTX exchange, right? Yeah, I will also use some other exchange as well, but I will use FTX right now because it is one of the exchange that offers the greatest trading liquidity. Today, I'm going to talk about the interest rate offered in the exchange. Right? So you see all these like land 1%, land 1%, land 0.88%. What does that mean, right? So on the left hand side, you have all the tokens. On the right hand side, you have the interest, right? So this basically means that if you have some of the tokens, you can actually lend them out for interest, right? This is how people get an yield of their asset that has relatively no risk because this lending guaranteed by the exchange. Of course, relatively no risk doesn't mean no risk at all. The only risk is the exchange default, right? Because if your coins in the exchange is actually are not held by you, they are held by your custodians. So if something wrong, something very wrong happened to the custodians, in this case, which is the exchange, and then your money is in jeopardy. Okay, so all this lending, and what does the lending interest really mean, right? So if you look at the stable coins, like say USDT or USDC, for example, right? The low lending interest actually means that the market is in a bear market. As we know, right now we are in a bear market. The interest rate is for lending is very low. This is because in a bear market, nobody actually want to do leverage trading. Nobody want to do leverage trading. But then the demand for this excess cash, right, is actually very low. The reason why the exchange can actually pay you an interest, right, because the exchange is able to lend the money out to speculators who want to do a leverage loan position, who want to do futures, all this, right? In other words, there are people who actually borrow your money to do on the speculative loan side. So right now the interest is low for a reason because in a bear market there isn't such demand. So on the other hand, if you look at the non-stable token, right? For non-stable tokens, you can also lend out your non-stable tokens for interest, right? Be a Binance token or Luna or Ethereum. You see, they are actually an interest rate offered as well, right? So what does the interest rate mean, right? So the interest rate actually reflects a supply-demand dynamic of people who actually borrow your token for short selling. So for example, if you hold Ethereum, right, you lend out for interest, right? But actually, who pays the interest to you, right? Of course, the exchange pays the interest to you directly, but where does the exchange? How does the exchange earn the money, right? Your Ethereum, your Ether, is actually being lent out to speculators who are short Ether, or short Ether, right? So if you understand about short selling means that you don't have the underlying asset. And this is very similar to stock market as well, right? You don't have the underlying asset. You need to borrow the underlying asset and sell it. Open a sell position. Once you open a sell position, you need to buy back to cover your position, right? So for somebody who's long, they open a long position first and they close out the long position with a short position and take the profit or loss. In short selling, it's opposite. They need to sell something they don't have first. So in order to sell something they don't have, they need to borrow from someone. So you see that all this interest rate, right? Why this interest rate exists because there's a demand for your assets. This demand comes from the short sellers. So here we can actually do some analysis. Right? We see that for the assets, right? Some of the assets have pretty low. I will say most of the assets have pretty low short selling demand. Right now, because this is a live snapshot right now. So basically like 2% or lower. Some have higher, right? 30%, 20%. And you can see that for UST is extremely high. The short selling is actually like 200%. So what does this really reflect? This reflects actually the amount of like say short selling pressure that's on the assets, right? So when UST, this token, technically it was a stable coin, but now we don't really treat UST like a stable coin because it has already depegged, right? We know that depegging happened earlier this month. So right now we do UST trading more like a just like a non-stable coin, a speculative asset, right? People who are opening both like long and short position, right? So we see that lending interest is very high, right? So what does the lending interest tell us, right? When the lending interest is very high for the non-stable coins, it tells us that there is a lot of demand for short selling, which means that the the vast majority of people who have position in UST, or the vast amount of money who have position in UST are at the short side. A lot of money are actually shorting UST right now. So it also means that actually short selling UST at the current market dynamic is actually very dangerous, right? Because when everybody is selling something or everybody is shorting something, this can actually means that it's a very crowded trade. So when it's a very crowded trade, sometimes taking the opposite direction might be a better option. Although it's also very risky as well, because UST is currently in deep trouble. It's a project that's in deep trouble. So whether it's long or it's short, you are basically taking a lot of risk for your money. But if I have to take a position, I'd rather be on the long side than the short side, because the short side is really a very crowded trade right now. It's the same concept as the GameStop saga that happened 1 year ago, right? So the hedge fund is already shorting the GameStop stock, right? But because in stocks you can see something like open interest, right? But in crypto, it's very hard to find such data for open interest for the specific coins in an exchange, right? Or for specific coin in the overall market. You can find that in of course, if you pay money, maybe there are some service provider, right, who are able to provide the open interest position, but it's not very comprehensive. It's not very obvious, because in the stock market, in a regulated market, these are open information because of regulatory demand. You have to declare all this open information, like how many, what are the institutions are actually taking large long position, or what are the institutions that are taking large short position. So in crypto, it's not mandatory, right? So sometimes you have this information, sometimes you don't have the information. So by looking at the interest rate, I think this is a very good indirect information that you can get to look at which particular token are actually being heavily shorted. Because those tokens that are heavily shorted, they will have a huge demand to borrow them. The huge demand to borrow them will drive up the interest rate. So these are the potential short squeeze trading opportunity that I think I will look at it from an angle that if I want to do some short squeeze trade, right, which means taking long position against the short seller who are trapped in a very crowded position, I will look at the lending interest, right? Okay, that's all for today. If you like my channel, do subscribe my channel.